The wind clawed through the pines like something alive. Officer Mark Ellery tightened his coat and scanned the tree line, the beam of his flashlight slicing through the mist. His K-9, Duke, had caught a scent, something urgent, frantic, and bolted ahead before Mark could leash him. Now the forest was still, too still. Mark called his partner's name again, voice cracking in the cold. Then came the sound, low, desperate barking, from somewhere deep in the woods, followed by a faint creak of wood. An old cabin stood there, barely visible through the fog. Duke was inside, and something else was too. If stories that grip you by the heart and won't let go of your kind of thing, stay close. There's more coming. The beam of Mark's flashlight trembled as he moved toward the cabin. The structure leaned under the weight of years, roof sagging, walls half swallowed by vines. The bark of his K-9 echoed from within, sharp and strained. "Duke!" Mark's voice came out hoarse. He pushed through the last patch of undergrowth and reached the porch. The boards groaned beneath his boots. One of them snapped, and for a second he froze, every instinct screaming caution. He reached for his sidearm. "Duke, come!" A soft whine answered. Mark exhaled and stepped forward, shoulder pressing against the warped door until it gave way with a moan. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the musk of rot and dust. His flashlight swept across a small room. Broken furniture, a shattered mirror, an old, peeling wallpaper patterned with faint, faded blue flowers, the kind his mother used to have in their kitchen. "Duke!" The dog stood by a doorway in the back, tail stiff, ears flat. A low growl hummed from his chest. Mark crouched, scanning the floor. Mud prints. Human. Barefoot. Recent. He followed them. The door beyond creaked open to reveal a second room. Smaller, darker. Something metallic glinted on the floor. A necklace. Small, delicate, with a pendant shaped like a locket. Mark knelt and turned it over. Inside was a tiny, faded photo of a little girl. Blonde hair, missing one front tooth, smiling like the world hadn't yet shown her its ugliness. Before he could think, Duke barked again, sharp, alarmed. His flashlight darted upward. A sound. Upstairs. Something moving. Mark's pulse quickened. He stood slowly, drawing his gun. The staircase loomed ahead, steep and half-collapsed. Every step groaned under his boots. The flashlight beam trembled over the banister, catching flashes of torn fabric, dark stains, and carvings scratched into the wall. "Help U.S." repeated again and again. At the top, the hallway stretched narrow, suffocating. A single door at the end stood slightly ajar. From inside came a faint sound. Breathing. "Police," he called. "Show me your hands." Silence. Then a whisper. "Mark." He froze. No one had said his name. Not out loud. Not since he'd arrived. His flashlight quivered. "Who's there?" The voice came again, softer, trembling. "You shouldn't have come back." The door creaked open a little wider, and Mark saw her. A woman stood there, thin, pale, eyes wide and glassy with fear. Her hair was tangled, her face streaked with dirt. But it wasn't her appearance that made his blood run cold. It was recognition. He hadn't seen her in 10 years. Not since the night she vanished. Claire, his sister. She took a step forward, trembling. "You left me here." Mark's hand fell away from the gun. "What are you talking about?" "Claire, Jesus. Everyone thought you were dead. I was..." The words came out like a breath of ice. Behind her, something moved. A shadow, slow and deliberate. Mark raised his flashlight, but before he could react, Claire screamed. Then the light shattered. Darkness swallowed the hall. Duke barked, snarling, teeth snapping at the air. Mark stumbled backward, heart pounding, gun drawn. He could hear the sound of movement, fast, dragging, not human. The boards under his boots trembled. "Claire," he shouted. No answer. A crash sounded behind him. The door downstairs slamming shut. Then silence again. The kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, so heavy it felt alive. He fumbled for his backup flashlight, hand shaking. When the beam flickered on, the hallway was empty. No sister. No sound. only to lock it on the floor, lying open, its tiny face staring up at him from the dirt. Mark made it back downstairs, breath ragged. He tried the front door, locked. It hadn't been before. He yanked on the handle again, hard. Nothing. The frame wouldn't budge. "God damn it," he muttered. Duke whined, circling, anxious. He scanned the room. Dust motes spun in the beam of his light. Everything seemed rearranged. The table he'd seen broken before was standing upright now. The mirror no longer cracked. And where the old wallpaper had peeled, new paper seemed to gleam, fresh and blue. It was impossible. He stepped closer. The smell changed, sweet like lilac and lemon soap. A scent he hadn't smelled since childhood. His chest tightened. Then footsteps. Upstairs again. Slow. He looked up. Claire. Silence. He took one step toward the stairs, but something in his gut told him don't. The way Duke was backing up, hackles raised, confirmed it. He turned the flashlight toward the window. A reflection caught his eye, his own face. But something was wrong. Behind him, in the reflection, stood a man. Mark spun around. Nothing. He looked back at the glass. The man was gone. He exhaled, pulse hammering. "Get it together," he whispered to himself. The radio on his shoulder crackled suddenly, making him flinch. "Dispatch to Unit 7, what's your status?" He lifted it to his mouth. "This is Ellery. I'm at the old Wexler property off County 9. Found signs of forced entry. Possibly missing persons. My K-9's with me. Requesting backup." A long burst of static. "Then, Mark?" The voice was distorted. "Female." He froze. "Claire." The radio hissed, then cut to silence. Outside, a storm had started. Rain lashed the windows. Thunder rolled low and distant. Mark sat on the edge of the ruined sofa, hand clenched around the locket. Duke paced restlessly. He should have left. Should have called in again. But something in him couldn't walk away. 10 years ago, Claire had disappeared after a summer bonfire at the lake. Her case had gone cold. No body, no trail. He'd spent years carrying that guilt. The one time he hadn't given her a ride home. And now she was here. Or at least something that looked like her. A soft knock startled him. It came from the back door. 3 slow taps. Mark rose, flashlight trained ahead. The door rattled, then opened slightly. Rain poured in, carried by the wind. And standing in the doorway was a boy. No more than 12. Soaked to the bone, eyes wide with confusion. "Please," the boy said, voice trembling. "She's not supposed to wake up." Mark blinked. "What? Who are you?" The boy took a step inside, glancing over his shoulder like something was following him. "You shouldn't be here." She remembers now. Who remembers? Before the boy could answer, Duke growled low. From somewhere behind the child, a shadow moved, tall, slow, deliberate. The boy's eyes widened in horror. It's too late. Then the lights went out. Rain hammered the roof. In the pitch dark, Mark could hear the boy breathing, the dog snarling, the creak of footsteps circling the room. Something brushed past him, a whisper in his ear, so soft it almost wasn't there. "Stay." He turned, flashlight flickering to life just long enough to catch a glimpse. Something inhuman, face pale and wrong, eyes wide and hollow. Then the beam died again. Mark fired twice into the dark. A scream tore through the cabin. Raw, human, and then silence. When the light returned, the boy was gone. The back door hung open, rain slanting through. And carved into the wall beside it, fresh and wet with something darker than ink, were the words, "You left her here." Mark's hand trembled as he reached for the radio again. "Dispatch! Any unit I need." Static. He slammed it against the wall. Nothing. He looked at Duke. "We're leaving." The dog didn't move. Instead, Duke's ears pricked. His gaze fixed on something behind Mark. Mark turned. Slowly. At the base of the staircase stood Claire. Her face was pale, her hair dripping wet, eyes dark as storm water. "You can't leave," she whispered. "Not again." Before Mark could speak, she stepped forward, and the cabin lights, every one, flared on. The room around them had changed completely. No dust, no decay. The furniture was whole, the wallpaper fresh, the air warm, filled with the faint sound of a record player humming somewhere. The house looked alive. "Do you remember this, Mark?" she asked. "You promised you'd always come back for me." His throat closed. "Claire, that night you left me." He took a step toward her. "I was a kid. I didn't know." She smiled sadly. "And now you do." Behind her, the shadow moved again, taller this time, broader. Mark's chest constricted. He recognized it. The man from the reflection. The man from the case file. The man they'd blamed for Claire's disappearance. His father. Mark's voice broke. "No, he's dead." Claire tilted her head, eyes wet. "Not here." The shadow stepped forward, and the cabin began to shake, walls groaning, lights flickering. Duke barked wildly, lunging, as the floor split open beneath them. The last thing Mark saw before the world went black was his sister's face, half sorrow, half forgiveness, and then nothing. The world returned in fragments, first sound, then light, then pain. Rain whispered against glass. Wood creaked. Somewhere close, Duke was whining, nudging Mark's shoulder. Mark blinked hard, vision swimming. He was lying on the cabin floor, half buried in debris. His flashlight flickered weakly beside him, casting nervous shadows across the room. "Easy, boy," he murmured, pushing himself up. His ribs screamed in protest. He glanced around. The cabin had changed again. No longer alive and warm. No longer rotted and abandoned. Now it looked empty, hollow, as if someone had taken the world and drained it of sound and color. His gun lay a few feet away. He crawled toward it, each breath sharp and shallow. Then he froze. On the wall above the fireplace, written in smeared charcoal, were 6 words. "You never look for the others." He stared. "Others," he whispered. A soft crackle interrupted him. His radio, lying broken on the floor, hissed once, and then, "Mark, can you hear me?" He grabbed it. "Claire." Static. Then her voice again, thin and distant, as if echoing through water. "You were supposed to find us." His throat went dry. "Find who?" "Claire, tell me where you are." No reply. Only the low, wet sound of something moving in the next room. Mark lifted his gun, rising slowly to his feet. Duke's growl was deep, steady, controlled, the kind that said danger was close, not imagined. The door to the kitchen stood open. The smell coming through it was wrong. Metallic, sharp. He stepped inside. The room looked untouched, yet the sink dripped red. At first, he thought it was rust, until the copper scent hit him. Blood. It trailed down the counter, pooling on the warped floorboards. Something clattered behind him. He spun, gun raised, only to find a photo frame lying face down. He bent, flipped it over. It was a family picture. His family, his father in uniform, his mother smiling faintly, and 2 kids between them. Him and Claire. He frowned. The photo wasn't supposed to exist. His father had destroyed every picture after their mother left. The glass in the frame cracked as his hand tightened. "You still don't remember, do you?" Mark turned. She was there again, Claire, standing in the doorway, her bare feet leaving faint, wet prints across the wood. Mark's voice trembled. "You're not real." She smiled faintly. "Neither is guilt, but it still keeps you awake." He swallowed hard, lowering the gun a little. "Claire, I swear I tried to find you. After that night, after you disappeared." Her head tilted. "You searched the woods, yes? You filed the reports. You cried to Mom. But you never went to the cabin." His mouth went dry. "What cabin?" "This one." Thunder cracked overhead. The walls shuddered. For a heartbeat, the cabin seemed to split between timelines, the living and the dead overlapping like an exposed film. Mark saw flashes, his younger self at 17, sprinting to the woods with a flashlight, calling her name. He saw police lights, search dogs, the riverbank where they'd found her shoe. Then the cabin, a shape dragging something heavy into the dark. A man's silhouette, broad-shouldered, familiar. His father. The vision vanished as quickly as it came. Mark staggered back, breathing hard. No, he couldn't have. Claire's voice softened. You saw it, didn't you? Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. He was drunk. He was angry. But he wouldn't. He did. Her words sliced through the air like ice. Tears burned in his eyes. Why show me this now? Because he's still here. The temperature dropped. Frost spread along the window glass, creeping across the walls. Duke whimpered, backing toward the door. Mark followed his gaze. The shadow in the hallway had returned, taller, darker, thicker than before. A whisper floated through the cabin. Deep, male. You shouldn't have brought her back. Mark gritted his teeth. Dad? No answer. Only a slow, rhythmic thudding. Footsteps. Heavy. Coming closer. He raised his weapon, every muscle tight. Show yourself. The steps stopped. Then a hand, gnarled, pale, reached around the doorframe. Mark fired once. The sound cracked through the cabin, deafening. The bullet tore through empty air. When the smoke cleared, the hallway was empty again. Only the echo of his father's voice lingered, soft and broken. You weren't supposed to see. Mark slumped against the wall, the gun trembling in his grip. His mind felt like it was splitting between memories and hallucination. He remembered the night clearly now. The fight. His father drunk, his mother gone, Claire crying. He'd stormed out after the shouting started, thinking it was just another night of chaos. When he came back the next morning, she was gone. He'd blamed himself every day since. But this was something else. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. What happened here, Claire? Tell me everything. Her face softened with sorrow. You already know. You just buried it. He took a step toward her. I can't fix it if I don't remember. You can't fix what was never broken, she whispered. You just have to face it. Before he could respond, Duke barked sharply. Something outside was moving, branches cracking, leaves thrashing. Mark went to the window and froze. In the rain stood a woman in a long coat, holding a lantern. She wasn't moving, and she was looking straight at him. He blinked, and she was gone. He stepped outside, rain soaking through his shirt instantly. The storm had softened to a cold drizzle. Hello, he called out. The woods whispered back, wind sighing through the trees. He spotted faint lantern light deeper in the forest, moving slowly, deliberately. Duke growled, then started toward it. Stay close, Mark muttered, following. They moved between trees until the cabin's glow disappeared behind them. The ground grew uneven, the mud sucking at his boots. The light flickered again, farther ahead. Then he saw it, a small clearing surrounded by stone markers. Graves. Old ones. He stepped closer, wiping rain from his eyes. The names were barely legible, until one caught his breath. Claire Ellery, 2008. He stumbled back. No. The soil was disturbed, freshly dug. Duke whined, tail low, circling. Mark dropped to his knees, brushing dirt from the nameplate. Beneath it, something white glinted. A bone, small, child-sized, and beside it, a second marker. Mark Ellery, 2025. He went still. His heart began to hammer, not with fear, but realization. He turned to Duke. What is this? The forest around him began to hum. A low vibration that seemed to come from the ground itself. Then the voice again, his father's, closer now. You came back too late. Mark spun. Where are you? You should have stayed gone. The ground trembled. The graves cracked open like wounds. Hands, small, skeletal, reached out from the soil. Faces half formed in the rainlight turned upward, mouths open in silent screams. Children, dozens of them. Mark stumbled backward, horror twisting his insides. What the hell is this? Claire's voice answered, echoing through the trees. The others. He ran. Through the trees, through the fog, heart thundering like a drumbeat of survival. Duke stayed beside him, barking, snarling at the shadows that seemed to chase them. Branches whipped at his face. Mud slicked under his boots. The cabin lights flickered ahead. faint through the mist. He burst through the door, slamming it shut behind him. His chest heaved. The air inside was still again. But something was different. The table was set for dinner. 2 plates, 2 glasses, a half-burned candle, a family photo on the mantel, now showing 3 people instead of 4. His father, Claire, and someone else. Not Mark. Another boy. His stomach turned cold. He picked up the frame. The boy's face was blurred, smeared as though by time or deliberate hands. Then, faintly, in the reflection of the glass, behind him, someone was standing. He turned slowly. His father. The same uniform, the same steel-gray eyes. Only now they were hollow, rimmed with black. "Why?" Mark choked out. "Why her?" His father's voice was low, almost gentle. She saw what she wasn't meant to. And the others? They were the ones who didn't run. Mark's vision swam. "You killed them." His father stepped closer. "We both did." Mark's hand shook. "You're lying. Think, son. You were there. You helped me bury them." "No." "You held the lantern. You said you'd keep it secret." The room tilted, spinning around him. Images crashed into his mind. Memories he'd buried under years of denial. The screaming, the blood, his father's heavy breathing, his own trembling hands holding the light, while Claire begged him to stop. He fell to his knees, the weight of truth crushing him. "No," he whispered. "No, I was a kid. You made me." His father knelt in front of him. "We make our own choices." And then he smiled, a slow, knowing smile that didn't belong to the living. "Now it's your turn to stay." The room dimmed. Shadows thickened. Duke barked furiously, lunging between them. "Run!" Mark shouted. The dog charged, teeth bared, then froze mid-leap, body suspended for an impossible moment before dropping lifelessly to the floor. Mark screamed, "No!" When he looked back, his father was gone. Only the candle remained, burning steady, its flame impossibly bright. Inside the wax's reflection, the faces of the children flickered, the lost ones, watching him, waiting. And then Claire's voice again, soft, heartbroken. "You can't undo what's buried, Mark, but you can stop it from spreading." He looked at the gun in his hand, then at the walls, the floor, the place that had devoured everything he loved. He knew what she meant. He stood, tears mixing with rain. "I'm sorry," he whispered. He lit a match. The cabin caught quickly. The old would surrender in a flame as if it had been waiting years. The fire roared higher, swallowing memories, sins, ghosts. Mark stood in the doorway, watching until smoke filled his lungs and the world dimmed to nothing but orange and black. The last thing he heard was Claire's voice. Calm now, almost kind. "Now you remember." The morning after the fire, the forest was silent again. No wind, no birds, just a faint hiss of smoke drifting through the pines. Sheriff Allen Reese stood at the tree line, coat collar turned up, eyes fixed on the blackened wreck of the old Wexler cabin. The building had burned straight through the night. What remained now was a skeletal outline of stone and ash, smoldering faintly in the cold light. Beside him, Deputy Carla Wynne flipped open her notebook. "No sign of survivors," she said quietly. "Just bones. A lot of them." The sheriff nodded. "Same as before." Carla frowned. "Before?" Allen didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the ruins. "Back in 2008, when we found the first graves near here. You were still in high school. Girl went missing. Claire Ellery, her brother Mark, was on the search team." Carla scribbled something. "Ellery, wait, the same name as the officer we sent last night." "Yeah." Allen exhaled smoke from a cigarette. "Same one." She froze. "You're saying—" "I'm saying he never should have gone in there alone." The smoke rose higher, curling around the treetops. Allen stepped forward, crunching over the wet earth until he reached what used to be the front porch. The boards had disintegrated to charcoal. He crouched, pushing aside ash with his gloved hand until something caught his eye. A badge, half melted, bent, the name still visible beneath the soot. Ellery. Alan's jaw tightened. Damn it, Mark. He stood, brushing off his gloves, and turned toward the deputy. Get the forensics team to bag whatever they can. And tell Thompson to check the old case files from '08. I want every name, every detail. Carla nodded, though her face had gone pale. Sheriff, about the bones. He looked at her. They're not all human. By noon, the rain had stopped. The air hung heavy with smoke and damp rot. The forensics tent was up, the techs whispering over trays of evidence. Alan sat on the tailgate of his truck, staring at a photograph spread across his palm, a picture from 2008. The Ellery family. Father, mother, 2 kids. The father, Henry Ellery, had been a state trooper. Died by his own hand after his daughter's disappearance. The case had haunted Alan for years. Too many gaps, too many things that didn't add up. Now the brother, the last of them, was gone too. Only the dog had been found, burned but still recognizable. Alan rubbed his face. What the hell were you chasing, Mark? Across the clearing. Carla was talking with one of the techs, a thin man with wireframe glasses and a camera around his neck. She walked over, clutching a small evidence bag. Sheriff, this was found in the ashes. Figured you want to see. Inside the bag was a locket, blackened, twisted, but still intact. Alan turned it over. The hinge creaked open, revealing a faded photo. A little girl, smiling, missing a front tooth. He felt the air drain from his chest. Claire, the deputy's eyes lifted to him. Sir. He closed the locket, his voice rough. Get this to the lab. Priority. Carla nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. One of the guys found fresh footprints, barefoot, small, leading away from the site. Alan looked up sharply. Fresh? In this mud. Less than a few hours old. He glanced back at the smoking ruins. No way anyone walked out of that alive. Carla's voice lowered. Then who did? That night, long after the crews packed up, Alan stayed. He couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was watching him. Every rustle, every flick of light between the trees made his pulse quicken. He walked the perimeter one last time, before heading to his truck. That's when he saw it, half buried under a fallen beam. A notebook, the cover scorched, but the pages inside mostly intact. He opened it carefully, fingers trembling. The first few pages were filled with standard police notes, dates, times, case references, Mark's handwriting. But then the tone changed. March 14th. Heard her voice again tonight. Thought I was losing it until Duke reacted too. March 16th. The dreams are getting worse. I see Dad in the hallway. Sometimes Claire's behind him. Sometimes she's the one holding the gun. March 19th. Going to the cabin tomorrow. Can't ignore it anymore. If I don't come back, maybe I deserve it. Alan's heart sank. He flipped another page. The last entry was written in jagged, frantic strokes. She said it's my turn to remember. I think I finally do. God forgive me. The rest of the page was smeared, blood, maybe. He closed the book slowly. For the first time in 20 years, Alan felt cold down to his bones. 2 days later, the coroner's report came in. Remains consistent with male, approximately mid-30s. Extensive burn trauma. Identity confirmed via dental. Officer Mark Ellery. But there was something else. Several remains appeared belonged to juveniles, likely female, estimated between ages 8 to 12. Cause of death, undetermined. And below that, a handwritten note from the examiner. Multiple sets of remains appeared decades older than the cabin fire. Alan leaned back in his chair, the report heavy in his hands. His office was dim, the last of the day's light bleeding through the blinds. He stared at the locket on his desk. It had been cleaned, polished. The girl's smile shone faintly beneath the glass. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Carla stepped in, her face drawn. Sheriff, you want to see this? She set a folder on the desk. Inside was a photo taken at the site that morning. A new one. Fresh soil disturbed, and carved into a nearby tree in jagged letters. We found peace. Let them rest. Alan's voice dropped. Who found it? Carla shook her head. No sign of anyone. but the prints were back, barefoot. She nodded. Later that evening, Alan drove out to the site alone. The road was slick with fog, the forest drowned in twilight. He parked a few 100 feet from the clearing and cut the engine. The air was thick, damp, too quiet. He walked to the cabin's remains, flashlight beam catching smoke still curling from the rubble. He crouched by the spot where the message had been carved. The words were gone. In their place, something new: you don't have to carry it anymore. A faint noise stirred behind him, a soft whine. He turned. A dog stood at the tree line, gray, wet, coated in ash, but alive. "Duke," he whispered. The dog looked at him for a long moment, then turned and started into the trees. Alan hesitated, then followed. They walked through the forest until the trees began to thin. And there, in a small clearing he'd never seen before, was a pond. The surface was still like glass. Something shimmered beneath it. A reflection that wasn't his. The faces of a man and a girl, standing side by side, smiling. Alan's throat tightened. "Mark." The figures didn't speak. They just looked at him, peaceful. "Oh." Then, slowly, they faded. Duke turned once more, as if waiting for him to understand, before disappearing into fog. Alan stood there until dawn. When the sun rose, the clearing was empty. No pond, no footprints, just a forest, quiet and endless. Back at the station, he wrote the final report himself. Incident report, Wexler property fire. Evidence suggests accidental ignition by officer during search operation. Secondary graves indicate historical crimes connected to former state trooper Henry Ellery. No remaining threat to the public. Case closed. He paused before the last line, then added a single note in pen beneath it. Some ghosts don't want revenge. They just want someone to remember. He signed it, folded the report, and slipped the locket into his desk drawer. When he looked up, sunlight was spilling through the window, soft, golden, almost gentle. For the first time in years, he felt the forest breathe again. And somewhere far beyond the trees, carried on the wind, came the faintest sound of a dog's bark. Fading, free,